Welcome to the subcommittee. Can I just go through the remote hearing protocols? Only speak when invited to by the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. Will everyone please ensure that their mics are muted when they are not speaking apart from the chair? If you're having technical difficulties, please use the chat function in Google Meet to alert the meeting. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Once the application has been considered, any remaining parties will be asked to log out of the hearing. Please do so promptly so that councillors will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision. Each party will be notified of the decision within 5 working days. If I can just start off with the first item on the agenda, can we elect a chair, please? Can I start off with the first item on the agenda? Can we elect a chair? Can I have nominations?
I think Councillor Snell, you're on mute.
I'm here now. Can I nominate Councillor Pluvier, please?
Oh, I can't see Councillor Bell. Okay. Yeah. Right, we have Councillor Bell here to hopefully second the nomination for chair. Is that okay? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm very happy to second nomination, Mrs. Chair.
Thanks, colleagues. Okay. I will briefly introduce myself and my 2 colleagues. I'm Councillor Emma Pluvier. I'll be chairing this licensing hearing. I'll be supported on the subcommittee by Councillor Brian Bell and Councillor Peter Snell. I will introduce everybody else in a bit. The second item on the agenda is apologies for absence.
Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Sizer.
Thank you, Rabia, that's great. I believe I'm substituting for Councillor Sizer, but I'm not sure. So have we got any declarations of interest from the committee? None from myself, none from my colleagues. Thank you. Agenda item 4, minutes of previous meetings. We don't have any minutes to consider. And I'll move on to the subcommittee hearing procedure, and I'll run through that for people. First of all, I'll just identify the other people here from the council for this hearing. We have Rabia Khartoum as our committee officer. We have Amanda North, our legal officer. We have Suba Srinamana, who's our licensing officer. I believe that's all we have from licensing for the first item, but I will just check that. Yes. I do apologise. I need to check that I've got everybody on my screen. It's really it's not, I am not seeing. Okay, I think so. Right. So for the first item, the hearing procedure will be as follows. Let me just check that I've got everybody for the first item. So that's for the Thirsty Boy in Dalston. Who do I have here as the applicant? Daniel, yes, and you'll be speaking in support of your application. Brilliant. Okay. Who do I have here from the police? Oh no, we've not got the police in this, have we? So we've got also other people representing. Pauline, yes, you're here. Are there any other people for this item, the Thirsty Boy, who wish to speak? Just check if I have any others. Kathy Smith, are you speaking for this item?
Am I speaking?
No,
Kathy's not speaking.
Okay, okay, and Anthony Palmer, I have also here present. Are you for this item in Dalston, the thirsty boy? No, presumably not. Okay, so Pauline, you'll probably be speaking for everybody. Okay, thank you. Right, so the sorry, Councillor Snell, did you want to say something? Oh, put yourself on mute then, please. Thanks. Okay, the hearing procedure is that we've done step 1. Step 2, the licensing officer will outline the report. Step 3, the applicant for the premises license will present their case. Then we won't be hearing from responsible authorities because they've withdrawn their objections. So then we will move on to the other person's case to present their case and their reasons for making a representation on this item. And then we will have a discussion through the chair, and people can ask questions through me or raise points by putting up their hand, and you can put up your physical hand or put up your virtual hand at the bottom of the thing. Before we then have any final closing remarks before we finish this item. Okay. So I'll ask that the next item on the agenda is the Thirsty Boy Wine Company Limited application, and I'll ask Suba, our licensing officer, please to outline the report and where we're up to with that.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service are in receipt of an application for a premises license under Section 17 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Thirsty Boy Wine Co. Limited, ground floor, 2 to 4 Tottenham Road, to authorize the supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, as stated in the agenda. The applicant has reduced the supply of alcohol hours Monday to Sunday from midday to 21:30, Thursday from midday to 2200, Friday and Saturday from 12 to 23:30, and Sunday from midday to 2100. Police have withdrawn their representation based on agreed hours and conditions with the applicant. Representation still remains from the other persons. We have received an additional information from the applicant, which has been circulated. Also, I would like to clarify that this premises is not located within the Dalston SPA. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can we just check that clarification about the SPA? Because my understanding was in the meeting that we were correcting it the other way, but is that correct? So we're agreed that it's not in the Dalston SPA. Okay. Fine. Suba, can you just give me those hours again? So we have a reduction in the hours. Monday to Sunday, 12 to 21:30.
Yes, Monday to Wednesday, 12 to 21:30.
Wednesday, yeah.
Thursday, 12 to 2200.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday, 12 to 22:30.
Right.
And Sunday from 12 to 2100.
2100. So everybody's received that information, and is that for both on sales and off sales?
Yes, Chair.
Well, I'll clarify that with the applicant. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. We'll now move over to the applicant, and you have 5 minutes if that's okay, or thereabouts.
Cool. Hi, everyone. First of all, I'll apologise for my accent. If you don't understand anything I say, just ask me to pronounce it again, and I'll give it my best shot. Okay. So yeah, I wasn't really sure what to say in this, so I wrote a letter to the subcommittee to be a bit more thorough. Basically, what I just want to try and get across here is that this is a very small business at present. It operates in the online sphere. It's just me doing everything. And I live in the north, and currently I have to work in southwest London. So I was looking for a space which was more amenable to commuting and then working in. So I found this spot on Dalston and Tottenham Road. I noticed that I have quite a lot of customers already in this part of London. They were all really excited and really supportive of the fact that I would be able to have a space that would be first and foremost a shop, and then secondly provide a place where a really limited amount of people, I know that the conditions agreed with the police have been for 24 people who are seated at all times to be able to be served for consumption on premises within the hours that have already been discussed. I think during my application, I tried to be as thorough as possible in terms of addressing all the licensing conditions, acknowledging Hackney's own licensing policy, and then the Dawson Special Policy Theory. I was under the impression that it was, but if it's not, then so be it. And I can note that the hours that are being agreed upon with the police fall well within the licensing policy core hours. The fact that the patronage is limited the way it is and that they're all supposed to be seated also addresses concerns of unruly behaviour and potential to add to the cumulative effect in the area. And I guess I just wanted to address me as a licensee, seeing as I'm the one who's going to be responsible ultimately for policing all of this until everything happens. So my background is working in Australia. Everything is incredibly strict in terms of licensing and policing regarding alcohol, and that's something that I've worked with my whole life, working in alcohol, and I intend to bring in if this license is granted over here. I've spoken to the police at length. It was all very amicable and very easy to agree the conditions with them. There was only a few minor tweaks which needed to happen, and a lot of that was based around education of staff, and then the fact that I would join in with various groups within the area with publicans and licensees and such to ensure that there's always an open means of communication between myself and other licensees in the area, and then that everyone is working towards the common aim of creating an environment which is suitable for people to comfortably engage in and in no way is going to disrupt the residents, because I understand that they have reservations, and I would hope that I had addressed quite a lot of those, particularly surrounding the inference that this was going to be a late night drinking venue where customers were going to then, be unruly in the streets afterwards. And I know people have concerns for safety in the area already, and that's well founded. I'm a local resident myself. I completely understand that. But I think that I've addressed all these concerns in both the application and then my communications subsequently. And I would hope that they have allayed most of those fears and dealt with potential miscommunications and misunderstandings of points. I noticed that over the weekend, Hackney just introduced another, form of support for small businesses, or micro businesses as they're termed, in recovery from the pandemic. And a lot of that was geared towards small businesses that are regenerating the high street and adding diversity and creating an environment which celebrates the nightlife which the area is so renowned for. And that was something that I was particularly looking forward to being involved in if it progresses any further. That's all I have to say at the moment. I'm more than happy to answer any questions and go from there.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions of clarification? No, from Councillor Snell.
Can I just check that the reduced hours you've written to us about, are those hours of operation, hours for sales of alcohol?
The hours of operation, so the reduced hours for service of alcohol that were talked about previously, they factor in a 30-minute period prior to closing for last drinks to be called. So operation would...
Closing on Monday will be 2200 then?
At the latest. To be honest, I don't intend on being open on a Monday. It was just if I had an event or tasting, so yeah.
But what you want us to approve is a closing time of 2200?
That's correct.
On Monday and half an hour later throughout the week?
That's correct. And then 2100 on Sunday.
Yeah, okay, just get clarification.
Thanks.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, I think we'll now, in that case, if that's all the clarification, then we'll go over to the local resident objectors. And I'll ask Pauline if you would like to speak.
Thank you and good afternoon. I'm also speaking for people, probably at least there's about how many flats here in there? 48 flats. And then also for the people that live down Nimrod Passage. So I feel like I'm representing quite a large number of people, so I hope I do that well. We read the letter from Daniel telling us about what he was going to do and how he could make the situation better, but it didn't really allay people's problems with the licensing of the premises. There's already quite a lot of antisocial behaviour around the area. There's a office that used to be a signing on office. It's now the National Insurance building, and it's a bit of a dead zone, and people tend to gather there, do drugs. Even during the day, the area is used as a toilet. I've come out of my gate and had to clean up vomit. Middle of the day, it's also, can be excrement. So we're already dealing with quite a lot of issues here. Also, I've worked extensively in the service industry, and I know that it's very difficult to control people once they leave the premises, so you can't really guarantee that people won't be smoking or making noise. The nature of the buildings, it's a narrow area, narrow road, and there's brick buildings on both sides with a big factory warehouse where Daniel wants to move into. This creates an echo chamber. So when people are drunk or standing outside smoking cigarettes, it literally means that you can hear everything they're saying when you're inside, both in the flats that are in de Beauvoir and in my own place. I didn't hear anything about the tables outside. The pathway is very narrow. There's also children going up and down the road. There's two schools. There's also lots of venues. Prior to COVID, literally on any Saturday night, you could hear probably about 6 sound systems going on. So all of this neighbourhood is we're not killjoys. We understand that, Dalston has a vibrant nightlife, but it seems that it's only for a certain section of the demographic that's here. And a lot of the people in de Beauvoir are either retired or they're sheltered housing. Also, the lower floor that goes directly onto the road where that would be facing the wine bar, it's actually 4 retirement flats, and those are all for people over 50, and all their bedrooms are actually facing onto the road. They're already disturbed quite extensively, even by just people going to the National Insurance office that stand outside, stand across the road, smoke cigarettes, make a lot of noise. The hours are quite long, even though Daniel says he's not going to open on Monday. If he's given a Monday opening, that means at any stage, if he wants to have an event or something like that, he's open. And also the extra half an hour for last drinks means that really we're looking at 7 days a week and quite long hours. I really feel like it's restricting people's ability to enjoy their own environment. And I know Daniel says he's local, but actually when I looked at where he lives up in Newington Green. So that's a bit quieter and it's not as rowdy. And if he came and lived down where we live, he might experience what it's like to live on the edge of Dalston when it's pumping on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like a zoo sometimes out here. Also, the wine bar, again, it has a very narrow demographic. The people that are living in de Beauvoir, most of them are probably over 50, and there's really not a lot to do in Dalston if you're over 50 at night time. There's not a lot of facilities. So I'd also say that in terms of the value for the community, it actually is quite low. And the other thing I'd really like to point out is we have a lot of wine bars and we will have a lot of bars already here. I think we're already oversubscribed.
Thank you. Any clarification from members? No? Okay. And I believe you're speaking for everybody. Is there anybody else who's expected?
There's the ladies sitting on either side of me. Would either of you ladies like to say anything?
You said everything.
No, I think, like I say, I feel actually quite nervous because I'm representing quite a lot of people and I want to do a good job of it.
Okay.
A lot of elderly people that often, they don't have a say. A lot of people here don't have access to internet. So, they would have probably come on, but I guess I don't need to tell you about the problems with being older in Hackney.
I think
Okay.
we've experienced lots and lots of antisocial behavior.
Okay.
We're thinking, not another one. We had the bar shelter issues. We've got the job center issues, making noise, locked deliveries. And to be fair, Daniel, like Pauline said, we're not killjoys. We just want to live here in peace. We do not need any antisocial behavior on our doorstep.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for that. That's great, thank you. We've heard from both people, so we can now have a discussion if people have points or further questions they want to raise. The first thing I'd like to raise with Daniel is if you could, in response to the to Pauline's request, talk about your intended possible use of the outside area.
Yeah, so I had anticipated applying to the council for a potential to use pavement license for one table. I agreed with the police this morning that would, if that was to be approved and everything to go ahead, that would be a table for 6 people maximum to be served drinks, and that area would close at 9 p.m. And then the area would be dispersed, and then if there is no room inside, then those people will be asked to leave the premises if they take it over the maximum amount of people that were allowed to be seated inside at the time. Yeah, I understand what the residents were saying about it being a narrow, relatively narrow strip, and that was the whole idea with only allowing one small narrow table, was to not block a thoroughfare or create a nuisance, and that the same idea with it finishing at 9 p.m. and that's something that I'm more than happy to discuss if it needs to close at an earlier time in order to prevent any noise pollution. I know that the residents had previously suggested a better use for the space would be something closing at 8 p.m. and I guess if that's going to be a caveat in the thing and something as a real sticking point, then that's something that I'm more than happy to discuss as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And just I'm sure it's in the conditions, or maybe not. It's just removing the tables and chairs. Is that part of the closing of that space?
Yeah, of course, it would be completely cleared in the hours that it's not operational. There'll be nothing there.
Okay, great. Okay, colleagues, anything you wanted to bring in now? Councillor Snell.
There is some reference in the background papers to nuisance from the existing premises. So I just wondered what the current use of the premises are. I'm also interested, Mr. Long, in just getting a bit more of a feel for your operation. I mean, I'm feeling that this basically is to some extent an extended shop front, and that the bulk of your sales actually come from, you're a wine merchant, aren't you? Maybe just talk me through the operation in general.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, currently the space is empty. It was a architect's office before, and now it's just an empty, mixed use building. So a wine merchant essentially. It's e-commerce based at the moment, but that was COVID dependent. Like, my idea was never to run an e-commerce business. I've always wanted to have bricks and mortar presence. And so the majority of the space is both a distribution point for the existing online businesses as well as a shop front, and then an area where I am able to host tastings, and then people can drink on premises as well. That's the crux of it. It was never intended to be a late night rowdy venue. It's just like, I have these existing businesses. I'm a small business owner. I never wanted to put those businesses in jeopardy by opening a bar, which I know, as Pauline has said, Dawson's an area where there are lots of late night venues, and I have absolutely no interest in becoming one of those venues. I've done that. I don't have any intention of working until 2 or 3 in the morning anymore. I hope that that's been conveyed.
Okay. Anyone else wish to raise a point or have a question on this issue? Okay.
Chair, I'm just checking, did we get final clarification whether or not it was from the SBA or not?
No, I don't think we did, because there seems to be some confusion about that.
I'm trying to search the map, but I'm not unclear
Yeah.
on mine.
Sorry, Chair, I can confirm it's not in SPA. It's not within the SPA.
But it must be immediately adjacent to the SPA then, because the streets on the high street are definitely in the SPA.
I think on the map, when I read the map, it's right. Yeah, it's right on the fringe. The red line is either on the building or to the side. There's currently it's like a Suzuki motorcycle shop or something. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. I wasn't sure, so I just assumed it was.
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously, it is. If it isn't in the SPA, that's because it's taken to be a resident. I mean, you know, the fact of it being residential from there on, in the sense that side trumped the SPA, but so to some extent, it's relatively immaterial, but we'll note that it's very close and that the residents have raised issues of cumulative impact in their evidence anyway. Okay. Right. I think we've probably heard enough on this. Oops. Okay. I'll just ask the two people whether you want to say something in summing up, and we'll go in the same order that you've spoken. So we'll start with you, Donald. Do you want to have any sort of summing up, not new evidence, but anything you want to just draw our attention to in this?
Yeah, I guess maybe just one thing. Not new evidence. I'm just addressing something that was brought up earlier. The fact that that area is a bit of a dead spot, and I've noticed that myself. When I was looking at the space, I went there on a Friday night and walked down through the intersection at Dawson Lane, and I noticed how much quieter that little part is as soon as you get down past that Irish pub on the corner. I don't know what it's called, which was, I mean, to be honest, part of the appeal, because I wanted to be an area that was a little bit removed so that I wasn't attracting the crowd, which was already causing issue. And then just on that point, I feel, I don't know, it's like a counterpoint to people causing disruption. I just feel like if you were going to cause disruption through antisocial behaviour, you're far less likely to do that if it's out the front of a premises which is open. I don't know if that's completely wrong, but I feel like an area that's lit has camera footage, CCTV cameras and everything there, and also a presence of people inside and potentially outside as well. I feel that maybe detracts from people going to be causing issues during the hours, of course, that the venue is open. And what happens after the venue is closed, I'm not sure that I can be held entirely accountable for the actions of people when I'm not there after the venue is being closed. Obviously, it's the intention that it doesn't cause any further disturbance from the people who are patrons of the venue. But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Pauline, do you want to say anything?
Yes, I would. Really, Daniel can't control the actions of as soon as somebody steps outside, even to smoke a cigarette, really they're outside of his control. And the building before where the motorbike shop is was actually a little cafe, and that used to get broken into regularly. So I think it's just the area here is a bit of a hotspot for violence and crime. People have been mugged. I've been threatened. My neighbour has actually had somebody come into her house. She has CCTV. We actually had the CCTV of them walking around her bedroom, stealing things while she was in her bed, asleep. So the CCTV television doesn't help. You know, and like I say, I think Daniel is underestimating the kind of what people will get up to and how much you can control people. But most of all, it's probably about the large number of people that live in this area residentially, and how it's not really going to add any value. It's going to be detrimental to their life. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank you.
Bell.
Just clarification on 2 points. First of all, Mr. Long suggesting in terms of numbers at tables outside the venue? What was the maximum you were suggesting?
6.
It's down from 12 in your written submission, yeah?
Yeah.
And more importantly, if we were not to allow the application but not allow the outside element, would the business be able to operate?
Yeah, it would. I just feel it would be a little bit disappointing, you know, on like a nice summer's evening, not be able to enjoy a glass of wine in the sun. But that's non-issue.
Okay, because we might be minded to allow it. The inside element doesn't seem to me to be very big or very challenging.
Yeah.
The outside element seems to be the problem issue.
Okay.
And what we could do is potentially allow it and allow you to come back for a variation after having operated inside for a period.
Yeah, because I agree. It's obviously at the moment it's not nice to be sitting outside, and if it was to be granted and I prove to the residents and everyone else that everything is under control, and then if it's something that can be amended at a later date, then I'm happy for that to happen.
Thank you.
Cool.
Okay, all right. In that case, if there's no further clarification, I will draw this item to a close and thank everybody very much for attending. We will be deciding on this at the end when we've had the other hearing, and we'll be able to let you know what the decision is tomorrow with the contact licensing, and hopefully within 5 working days after that will be fully available. Is that okay?
Okay, that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very
Sorry,
much.
could you just clarify when there will be an answer? Will it be this evening or will it be tomorrow? I just couldn't hear you.
I believe if you contact licensing tomorrow, they will give you the general decision, and the specific written decision would be after that. But yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Is that okay? Thanks. Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've only been going for half an hour, so unless my colleagues want me to, I'm not proposing to have a break now. I was just checking you were happy with that. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the review of the premises license cargo. Right, I think perhaps I just need to make sure that we've got everybody here that we need for that. So we have the applicant, and this, sorry, I have to just go over the fact that this is a review now, not an application. So the structure of the hearing is the same as last time, except the applicant for the review is heard first, and the respondent for the premises is heard after that, and then we hear from other persons. Okay, is everybody happy with the layout of the hearing? They understand what's going to happen? Okay, cool. So I'm expecting to hear from, is it Jeremy Phillips on behalf of the police? Yes.
Yes, madam. I'm here and ready.
And are you intending to call witnesses, or you will do the speaking?
I'll principally speak. I've got one PC, Sean Giles, who I might just, when I've addressed you briefly, ask to introduce a video clip that obviously isn't within the bundle, but I think has been lodged with your officer.
Okay. And then we have from licensing, we have Channing Riviere.
Hello, Chair.
Are
Yes.
you making a representation after the police? Is that right? I'm so
Chair, yeah.
sorry, I don't have.
It's in the report, Chair.
Yes.
My representation, yeah.
So you will be making your representation after Jeremy Phillips, after the police. Yep. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And then we'll be hearing from the other persons. And I just want to check that we have, so on the list I have, we have Robert Gardner first. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm here, Chair. Yes, thank you.
Lovely. Then I have Jonathan Mobley.
Yes, I'm here.
And you are speaking for yourself and other people, I believe.
Yes, I submitted a impact statements on behalf of 25 residents. I've got 3 residents here that may not be on your list who I'd like to introduce, if that's possible.
Okay, is that are they people who have made representations?
Yes, they are. And I've got Susanna Cow, who's the chair of the Boundary Tenants and Residents Association.
Right.
So two residents plus Susanna on behalf of the Boundary TRA.
And has they've all made individual representations?
Yes,
Yes.
I have. Yeah, as the chair as well as the resident, I've made my representation.
Okay.
And the other two have as well. I can give you their names. One is William Mann, and the other one is Manisha Gayapasad. They both contributed statements to the impact statement document that I provided.
Okay. I think I see them here. I see one of them here anyway. Okay. Okay. Then I also have other. I can't see people. I need to, if possible, to see people who wish to speak. I don't need to. Just check so I've got maximum. Right. Okay. So I have also on the list Samuel Normington. Is he here?
Samuel's one of my residents. He sent his apologies.
Okay. I also have Matt Mitchell.
He's also not able to attend.
Grace Megros.
And Grace is another apology.
And William Mann we've got, right, and Jack Simpkin.
Jack Simpkin we're expecting, but I don't see him on the list.
Okay. Then I have E24 Caris. Is that somebody who wishes to speak? Nope. And then I have E25 Navid Sheikh.
Navid Sheikh is a resident who, again, we're expecting, but I don't see him on the list.
Okay. John Fortune.
Yes, I'm here.
And you wish to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people, it looks like, so far. And that should be ample, I think, probably. Okay. I think that's everybody that I'm expecting here. And nobody's aware of anybody missing, are they, before we start this item? No. Great. Okay. So in that case, this is item 7 on the agenda, the review of the premises license cargo. And I'd like to invite Principal Licensing Officer Suba to outline the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Licensing Service on receipt of an application from the Metropolitan Police Authority for the review of the premises license under Section 51 of the Licensing Act 2003 for the cargo, 83 Rivington Street, on the grounds of the prevention of crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance and public safety. We have received representations from the licensing and other persons. We have also received additional information and videos from the applicant, premises license holders, and from other persons. All these documents have been circulated. I have nothing much to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any clarification from the licensing officer at this point? No, thank you. Lovely. Okay, in that case, I'll invite the applicant, Jeremy Phillips, on behalf of the police to present your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much, Madam. I don't know if you can hear me clearly.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Well, Madam, as you've heard, I appear for the Metropolitan Police Authority in relation to our application to review the licence for cargo, 53 Rivington Street. Madam, I assume that you and your colleagues have had the opportunity to read the papers, and obviously the bulk of our representation is contained in the detail there. And obviously in 5 minutes, I'm not going to be able to scrape the surface of that. But quite simply, the police say that despite numerous efforts to engaged with the licensees over the years, in particular 11 meetings with the venue itself over in the last 2 years, and numerous multiple meetings, calls, visits, and so forth. There has been no sustained improvement in problems that we've experienced and the local population have experienced with violence, theft, drugs, and general crime and disorder widely associated with the premises. And just on a specific point, from July of this year until the end of October this year, we've recorded 69 incidents which we associate with the premises. All of these are mentioned in the review papers. And of those 69 crimes, 60 occurred after midnight. So that's approximately 87% of the crime, the venue occurred after midnight. And in relation to violence alone, 17 violent incidents occurred, 13 of which occurred after midnight. That's 76%. In addition, if we're looking at the hours, out of the crimes that I've mentioned, 51 occurred after 1 in the morning. That's 76% of the total. And of the violent crimes, 76% occurred after 1. So we say it's inescapable that the late hours of these premises in this particular location, under this particular management, has been a real problem. And that's something that we'll be inviting the committee to address. The good news is that finally, after all of this engagement and right really up to the 11th hour on the eve of these proceedings, we have managed to secure some measure of agreement with the premises, in particular its director, Ismail Khan, known to many people in the area as Rocky, to some extent, so that it's my understanding, and obviously we'll hear from the premises themselves, it's my understanding that he accepts that the premises should close. He accepts that the premises should close for a period of time, some 3 months. It was proposed that the license should be suspended. It's a matter for the committee. He's proposing a substantial investment, and we'll hear from the premises, no doubt, as to exactly what that would entail, and the creation of entirely new brands at the premises, so a completely new style of operation, because we say in large part many of the problems have been with the kind of style of the premises and the people which it attracts. I also understand that during those 3 months, the premises would seek approval for the new plans and the new operating style and training that they would propose to offer the staff. And in addition to that, and critically, those instructing me, and particularly PC Giles, Sean Giles, has engaged extensively with Mr. Khan and agreed with him a number of new conditions. This again has been happening right up to today's hearing. And Madam, I hope later on in the proceedings perhaps to be able to share with you the detail of those conditions to assist you and your colleagues, to help you focus on what might be done to improve the arrangements. So of the conditions proposed, I think that there are, I'll just get it up on my own screen. I think we had agreed with the licensees some 16 new conditions. I think the licensees, and again, I'll let them address you themselves, are proposing a number of additional conditions, which we haven't sought. Where we have not agreed, however, is specifically in relation to hours. It's firmly the police view that the premises should be brought back to core hours. These premises are obviously within the SPA. They obviously fall subject to your policies on that, and we say quite clearly, to date, they have failed to address that, despite numerous prompts and assistance from the police. The police have been working with them rather than in any kind of confrontational style, and they just simply have not managed to bring the premises round, or even, we say, until very recently, shown any great desire to do so. So we say that the premises should be brought back to core hours, ideally. Madam, that I think is largely what I would say, just in the briefest of openings. If it were possible for PC Giles to show the committee a clip, which won't be apparent from the papers, the licensing officer confirmed it had been circulated to all parties, and at my request, it was the briefest of clip, just to give us all a flavour of what we say the problems have been in the area, which have prompted us and evidently a number of other parties to raise objection to this licence.
Yeah, okay.
Now, it's just a question whether that can technically be done. I appreciate the difficulties with it. I don't know whether it'll be necessary for, we've got PC Giles there. And
hello, Chair. We're just currently it. Yeah, hello. Thank you, Jeremy. And there was an issue with the USB from the council who are going to share it on our behalf. So we're just doing electronically. So my colleague's now logging on to do it. Unfortunately, he keeps getting kicked out. So we're trying our very best now. Chair, if you want me to run a sort of commentary while it's showing, if it starts to play, then I will do. I did submit it as part of the review bundle as a later document. But I can talk through that as soon as it starts playing.
That would be useful. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, so hopefully you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, so this is just showing some disorder outside the venue. With them, there's a large queue to the left, and these are the large crowds. It's just us to kind of illustrate the groups of people outside the area and what police have to deal with on a regular occurrence. This was a stabbing in May, and it just showing with a stabbing suspect with a knife and an injury. We had to walk through these amounts of crowd. And you can see to the left, that's the cargo front door. So that's dealing with some disorder. We're trying to deal with an incident, and there's crowds of people grabbing at officers, and this is a regular occurrence. This is an illustration of what our public order police, our TSG, our level 1, depict in some of their statements. So this is Shoreditch High Street. To the left, in between the two like overhangs, is the Rivington Street. It's just another view. So this was taken back in July at 3:34. Cargo kicks out at 3 o'clock. The next still you'll see is from the same street, but when cargo has been closed last weekend or the weekend before, and it's completely clear. This is Rivington Street back in August of this year, again showing the crowds. The time is at 3:15, so cargo kicked out. That's cargo's SIA there. And it's just showing the poor dispersal policy, which I've illustrated in my review hearing and my review paperwork. And this is a common occurrence. The queue on the left under the tree, that's the queue to get into the venue. It's our argument that it's unmanaged. It attracts crime, balloon sellers. This is after they've kicked out of 3:15. In my review statement, I referred to the dress policy, which was talked about, and it's just showing that their dress policy wasn't adhered to. And this was before searching back in September. And our argument is that's not adequate, that's not sufficient in regards to the high crime that occurs with the weapons and drugs. And this was when cargo was closed on the first weekend, so 2 weekends ago, just showing the contrast from back in August to back to now when it's closed. And that's the end.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer. So, Madam, that in the briefest, as I say, of outlines is the position of the police. Again, you will have seen in your papers comparisons of the disorder that we experience with these premises and the crimes we experience with these premises compared with other premises, and it's off the scale, but it's completely disproportionate to the size and what we would normally expect. Madam, I say I'll say no more at this stage.
Thank you very much. Members, points of clarity. Councillor Bell.
So can I just check, are the police still seeking revocation?
Obviously, it's entirely a matter for the authorities to determine. We wouldn't urge a particular course. I think, though, of the options, and we've been through the options as your committee will normally do, obviously no action is clearly inappropriate. What we would say in this case, that it's our feeling probably that a proportionate approach, a fair approach, would be a blended approach with options, I think, 2, 4 and 5. That is the imposition of effective conditions which will stop this thing happening in the future. I say we've invested a huge amount of time in devising those. The removal of the DPS, a significant problem with these premises, we say, is that the DPS is responsible for these and many other premises, and I think that's conceded by the licensees. And then a significant period of suspension, and we say 3 months would be required to implement, at the very least, I suspect, to implement the changes which I think they now accept are required.
Sorry, that's okay. Councillor Snell.
Thank you. I mean, first of all, congratulations to PC Giles. We do occasionally complain about the quality of the evidence. You have absolutely first-rate report. So well done on doing your job so well. I just want a bit of clarity, because I was amazed at these industrial quantities of laughing gas. And what interests me is that, am I misunderstanding the impact of laughing gas? Because previously people have said the people selling the gas are linked to hardcore drug dealers, class 1 drug dealers, whatever they're called these days. But in fact, what the report seems to be suggesting is a combination of this laughing gas, nitrous oxide, and alcohol does actually lead people to act violently. So could somebody just explain to me, as an innocent, whether in fact we now perceive this as directly leading to violence in a way that I hadn't previously been aware of?
I'll have to invite one of our officers, if I may, who are on the call. I don't know if somebody can assist Councillor Snell with any information on that.
Councillor Snell, I think without like a medical qualification, I can't really comment so much. But I think a mixture of NOx, balloon, alcohol, and just large crowds, that all equates to violence in the area. I don't think we can directly link not certain behaviours, but it does definitely. It's a bit of like a broken window theory. Just if that type of people are allowed to hang around in the area, it attracts trouble from all different aspects.
Okay. Is that?
Thank you.
Okay. I have a hand raised from John Fortune, who I don't have. Is that to say that you wish to speak as an other person, that you've joined this meeting?
I've been here for a while. I wonder if I could say anything helpful about nitrous oxide.
No, not at the moment, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks very much. Okay, if we have no other points of clarity from the police submissions, the applicant, I will invite the next representative from licensing, Channing Riviere, to make a statement, please.
Thank you, Chair. Our representation on behalf of the licensing authority is based basically on the information and evidence the police have supplied in their application. We have some concerns about the number of incidents and the frequency of incidents, and given that police have engaged with the operators for a protracted period of time, notably, if you look at from page 15 to page 20 of the report numbered by the PDF document and Appendix B40 and B41, these are quite significant incidents that sort of demonstrate the licensing objectives are not being promoted. And this is why we've submitted our representation. Also, I note from the additional papers that they've proposed a new DPS who appears to have significant experience with licensed premises. They've also proposed to remove the dance floor. The statement of Mr. Khan says that cargo will not continue in its current form. It will operate in a completely different form. And what's proposed, from what I gather from his statement, is that there'll be an eatery, a cocktail bar, and a tap room, but there's no clarification around what the proposed capacity will be. And it appears that they're seeking to maintain the same hours. So given that the number of incidents in the SPA happen after midnight, it's up to the committee to really decide if that would be appropriate, given what's happened at the premises and the impact the premises has had on the SPA and the local area up until this point. So I have nothing further to add, Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, any points of clarification from? No, fine. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll now move over to other persons' representations. The first on my list is Robert Gardner.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair. I'm the Enforcement and Business Regulation Manager for the Borough. I think the police have shown, very, very clearly and without doubt, this is a highly, or was a highly problematic premises with a high number of violent crimes and other crimes, including sexual crimes that occurred within the premises. The management there has been significant engagement with them, but I think we could safely say we have a lack of confidence in their approach, certainly up till now. The statement from the police indicates that certain promises were not kept, or when they were asked for, when information was asked for, they were always answered late. We acknowledge that the DPS has changed and that further management changes are promised, such as senior management being present at the dispersal and such other things. So the concerns really centre around the premises management as they stand. The owner is promising to make certain changes. I appreciate there's been dialogue now with the police up till the last minute as to what the shape of the premises might look like in the future. But the owner has in fact in the past promised to make changes to the way the premises operates through a set of, and now they're offering a set of self-imposed variations to steer the premises away from its recent past in such a way as to avoid the incidents of which the police have amply demonstrated. However, the committee will note from the police statement, particularly on page 4, that there was a promise by Mr. Khan to change the operating procedure to act as a more food-led premises back in December last year. This was not followed up, and there's been no evidence of this until now, until the most drastic steps have been taken by the authorities. I would say that we accept that the premises is a problem. I mean, since it's been actually shut over the last 2 weeks, there have been no incidences recorded whatsoever, except one balloon seller and 2 males arguing. This is for the last 2 weekends. So I think it shows the impact as what happens when the premises closes. I would say that I think the police are absolutely right about the timings on this. If any new premises emerges from this, it must be the controls and the time must be considered. And I think a reduction to core hours is probably very much the way forward in being able to achieve a more law-abiding and compliant premises, and the one that we can expect to work and trust. I would also say that it's welcome that they're actually offering to do these changes now, but I think that there must be some very strict conditions to ensure that these promises actually do bear fruition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any clarifications wanted on that? No. No. Okay. Over to Jonathan Mobley, please. Let's see. You're on mute, Jonathan. Sorry. Just seeing you. You're still on. That's it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm chair of the Weavers Ward Safer Neighbourhood Panel in Tower Hamlets. Weavers Ward borders on Shoreditch High Street. I'm also, you know, in terms of experience, I'm a former personal licence holder and ran a venue in Shoreditch for 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. So I have some insight about how licensed venues run and some experience the history of the nighttime economy in Shoreditch. And it's definitely clear to me that something's changed in the last, I'd say, 3 years running up to COVID. So say the last 5 years overall, something's changed about the nighttime economy and about the level of activity, especially around Shoreditch High Street. And it's become a serious, huge problem, as it wasn't in the past. And my particular knowledge and interest is what happens on the Tower Hamlets side of the border, which is the residential areas, especially around the Boundary Estate, where life is becoming, I'd say, quite impossible for people on the weekends. I provided as evidence for this hearing, I've asked residents to contribute impact statements, not all of which link directly to cargo, but that wasn't really the intention. The intention is to explain to the committee what life is like, or how unlivable it is around here now on the weekends, which just wasn't the case 5 years or more ago. Also, I provided in particular an ASB diary for the month of August running up to early September, which included the night of Monday, I think it was the 8th of September. There was a Monday night and a Tuesday morning that resulted in, we do encourage residents to report incidents to the police, even though it's tricky to know what the police can do about it. And we were aware of at least 6 reports made by our residents on that one night, on a Monday night. So I did alert the Hackney's licensing department and the police about this, because on a Monday night that's unusual, and it's more likely to be able to evidentially link to a particular venue. And I believe Cargo was running a promotion on that night. Some residents on our WhatsApp described it as carnage that night. The behaviour pattern that we're talking about, it sort of runs from sort of 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. People arrive by car and use the residential streets as a car park. They kind of preload, start drinking around their cars, making noise, playing music, early evening. They then go off to the clubs and come back when the club's shut. So the party starts often at 3 in the morning. These are parties around cars with loud music, alcohol, knocks, fighting, all of the things, and it carries on until dawn. And this is actually after the clubs have shut, and often the policing tends to die down after the clubs have shut, but that's when the party tends to start. Issues include simply lack of parking, because people can't park. Residents can't park on the weekend because there is no parking because of the clubbers using it. The clubbers don't seem to mind paying parking fines as well. We've managed to get 24-hour residents only parking, but that hasn't deterred it. We've got alcohol, drug-related ASB, threats and acts of violence, public indecency, huge problem, urination and defecation, the car bar issue, litter, NOx-related litter. There are massive police presences on Shoreditch High Street as a matter of course, which is a crazy way to live.
I'm going to ask you please to wrap up, because we've got a lot of people who want to speak.
The one I just add a bit more about the NOx. I mean, it is an industrial scale activity. It's being sold as a business. People set up and NOx shops, what I call NOx shops, on Calvert Avenue, and I think there's some sort of gang-related turf war issues that go on with that create violence.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to stop there if you don't mind, because I think we've read a lot of this evidence, but thank you for presenting that and speaking on behalf of the residents, and on behalf of a number of residents. So I'm going to go on to the next person I have on my list, which is William Mann, and I will ask now the residents to speak for literally 1 or 2 minutes, and make sure that the things you say are adding rather than simply repeating everything, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I suppose what I'd like to do is perhaps just emphasise a couple of things. It's sort of, in a way, the impact of the clubs on the streets, particularly Rivington Street and Calvert Avenue, and then obviously the impact of the streets on residents beside those streets. So it's just to try and explain that when you have a 3 a.m. closing, that means we have people on the streets till 4 or 5 a.m. They're drunk, loud, often aggressive. Every weekend our sleep is interrupted. We get woken by fighting. We get woken by windows being smashed. So it's a huge impact on our sleep every weekend. There's a clear correlation between closing time and the impacts that come to us. So I think absolutely the question of the hours is fundamental that you've raised, and shutting earlier would choke off those late impacts that we're suffering from. I suppose the second key point I'd make is just that the streets have become menacing and tense in a way that they weren't even a few years ago. Okay. And a few years ago, there was this sort of sense of a pleasant party atmosphere, but I walk through the area with my teenage sons, and we're offered knocks, weed, cocaine, as we walk through Rivington Street.
I'm going to stop you there because we've heard a lot of that. Thank you for especially the comments on the hours. I do have to relate this specifically to the premises, but thank you.
That's right, in Rivington Street. That's precisely in front where the dealing and taking place. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Manisha. Hello.
Hi. Good afternoon, Chair. Yeah, I think I know that you're wanting to sort of speed this along a bit, so I won't detail everything that has been already submitted in our impact statements. I just wanted to highlight and stress, I've been living, my partner and I've been living in the area for 5 years. And as Jonathan says, that there's been a significant deterioration in those 5 years. And the thing I wanted to highlight is the level of stress and anxiety that it's causing tenants and how this is impacting our mental well-being. I'm a first-time mother-to-be, and honestly, the behaviour that now goes on in this neighbourhood makes me afraid, and will be eventually the reason that we are forced to leave this neighbourhood. I don't know whether there's an appreciation of the fact that the boundary estates are all historic buildings that only have single glazed windows. So the noise and the impact really feels like it's happening in our living rooms, and there's nothing we can do about that because we're unable to put second glazing or any other alterations to our buildings. And the last thing, I just anecdotally, it's quite timely that Cargo has been closed for the last 2 weekends, and the change that we have all experienced has been, bliss is what I can describe it as. We've been able to sleep for the last 2 weekends, and
that's very useful. We were going to ask that. Thank you for that. John Fortune. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was just waiting for the video to come on. Thank you for the opportunity. I work for Tower Hamlets Council. I'm a neighbourhood manager working in community safety. I'm here representing residents, but also probably a point of view from the council as well, if I'm honest. I've been in my role since August 2018. My job is to meet residents and then understand the problem, work with partners and trying to resolve those issues. So I've spoken to lots of individuals, lots of groups, and you hear a little bit of the get a bit of understanding of what's going on. People feel very deeply about this. They're very distressed and traumatized. They feel angry and upset about what is going on weekend after weekend. It is the noise that gets that wakes them every weekend. But it's also the anticipation of what's happening every weekend as well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm just wondering if you have anything different to add, seeing as you're not yourself a resident. Do you have anything that you want, any particular point regarding this premises and the review of this premises?
Yes, well, I'm talking about the anticipation of residents that are not only woken, but they can't enjoy their family homes each week.
Absolutely, and I'm hearing that from the residents themselves. I don't need to hear that from you as well. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else that you want?
Yes, there are some other things, because you need to know about the nitrous oxide and the fact that it's the dealing that attracts the violence to the area.
We've heard.
Yeah, you've heard some of it, yes. So these things are selling for £5, and there is those turf wars that you did hear about.
Forgive me.
It's really a cumulative effect on people, which is extremely damaging and high harm, and takes our police officers from the wards in Tower Hamlets to have to.
I don't want to get into a discussion about policing and knocks and all the rest of it, because we're here to deal with a review of a specific premises. I've accepted entirely hearing from the residents, and I've heard evidence already that the current closure has improved the situation in this patch, so that's good. And I don't think the committee underestimates. We've got a huge body of evidence from the police on both the problems and the effects directly on this area from this premises. So I don't propose to go over that ground again, if you'd bear with me on that. Sorry, you are now on mute, Mr. Fortune. So that's fine. I think we're finished with that. Right. Who else did I have on my list? I have the TRA chair. I'm sorry, I don't have your name.
Hi, thank you, Emma. My name is Susanna. So I'm the chair of the Boundary TRA. This TRA represents more than 1,500 residents.
Yeah.
And it practically starts from across the road, from Rivington Street along Calvert Street. There are more than 20 blocks that we represent. So we have, it's every weekend we have residents really telling us their anguish.
I'm there because you're repeating what we've heard already. I'd like to ask you if you've noticed an improvement since in the last 2 weekends.
Definitely. So on the WhatsApp chat, all the residents, many residents have observed a really noticeable difference. And we have the evidence on the chat for you if you want.
Lovely.
There is a clear, noticeable difference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Right.
Okay. I think we've probably heard a great deal, and it's not because I don't appreciate entirely the things that everybody's feeling and their desire to speak in this forum, which is why I've allowed you longer to express that. But we have also moved on with the premises in terms of their application to run something different, so we're taking all of this on board and dealing with it. And I thank you very much for your representations. And just check if there's
Can I just say one more point? I'm asking for a suspension, not a change of timing, because actually we really need a suspension to see the noticeable difference.
So you actually, when you say a suspension, what do you mean by that?
I think the cargo license got to be reviewed and in the meantime suspended, because a change of timing would only drive the partying onto the estate on the earlier timing. It doesn't change very much, because we have seen people going before, after, and when they are turned away and when they have no way of entering, they will start partying on our estate as well. So a change of timing might not really help.
You're hesitant about the change of timing. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Mr. Sheikh, you've just asked me if you could make a couple of very quickly extra points as you were on the list. You need to unmute. Can you unmute yourself and make very quickly something? No? Okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello. Yeah, very quickly, please.
Hi. So I would like to just mention something different. Before this call, I was thinking very deeply as to what I could say, because I'm guessing everyone's inundated with how negatively impacted they are and how it's a problem after problem after problem. So I won't be going into the list about how bad this is for the rest.
Just make your points. Yeah.
I can't see anything good out of this premises. I don't see that it's beneficial to anyone in any way, besides just causing torment, suffering, and a lot of pain for everyone. It's quite hard, it's quite easy to understand where the issue lies and how it's resolved. It's just a matter whether or not the people in charge will actually do something about it, because I think the people here are just really fed up and angry. And of course, I can see one after another, they're just listing and listing and listing. And I can see that it's just, just too much altogether. So I apologize on everyone's behalf, but this is the only chance that we've ever had where we can actually say something about it. So I understand everyone's point regarding this, but on a normal case, in any case that you look at, there's normally a positive and a negative. I personally cannot list anything good about this. So, there's no reason as to why it's here. The nighttime economy itself.
Is that the point you wanted to make, Mr. Sheikh?
Yes. Yeah. Besides that, of course, as you know, the list and impact statements which everyone have made.
Of course.
If you can read them up.
Of course, and we appreciate those. And thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I have a hand from Jeremy Phillips.
Jeremy Phillips, Madam. Madam, the only thought I had was, I did mention in my opening that we had discussed a range of conditions with the applicant, which I think there's 16 in total, which we say, if you take a step which is short of revocation, and you permit the premises to carry on, subject to restriction on hours perhaps, where these conditions would lead to an improvement from the point of view of the police. I wondered if you wanted us to share that with you on the screen. In that case, they are at the moment with PC Giles, Sean Giles, who's initiated this review, and I think she's able to share that on from her screen now.
Yeah, Chair, we're now sharing it. I've added on their conditions as well that they've proposed, and also their policies. One point I'd like to add is the search policy we've added on. They proposed it, but we've just added it onto one document for your ease, Chair. If you can see that.
Yes. So, Chair, I don't know if you want me to take you through those very quickly, or alternatively, PC Giles, who's discussed all of these with the management of the premises.
Whichever, I don't mind, but I think we need somebody to just go through them for us, if you wouldn't mind.
I think it's probably better. PC Giles, as I say, she's dealt directly with the premises. So, Officer, I wonder if you could just take us very quickly through those conditions as listed.
Yeah, of course. This has been an ongoing discussion between myself and Mr. Khan since we put the review hearing in. So these are the conditions. So the first one has not been agreed. If unfortunately we haven't been able to come to an agreement, that's in relation to hours. As discussed by Jeremy, we're looking for earlier closing time, and this hasn't been agreed. So it's something that we'd ask you to have a look at. There's also there's a condition regarding a hand stamp that we'd need the panel to take a look at. We'd like to see all customers going into the venue to be stamped. It's not necessarily a condition that Mr. Khan is opposed to, but it's something that we both seek clarification on. He questions human rights of doing such thing as stamping customers. So I'll let you take a look at that. The reopening, Mr. Khan has agreed to a 3-month suspension of the licence to enable him to reopen and retrain staff, put the new GPS in. So we have asked for the premises to not reopen for the trading until the detailed plans have been agreed, basically. It's obviously written up a lot better, but I'm just trying to keep it brief for you. I can email these across to you once you've heard from the venue themselves. The off sales has been agreed to be removed. So with these conditions, we'd still like to keep Cargo's original premises license, but these additions or amendment put on that just tidy up the license a bit. So there's condition 14, which is in relation to the clickers. We've asked for that to be slightly amended. So from 8 o'clock each day, all persons entering the venue will be counted in and out by a member of door staff with a clicker device. And then what issues we did see is sometimes when we asked the venue how many they had, they weren't aware or isn't inaccurate. So we're just asking them to make sure they have a risk assessment and they know at any given time the number of customers that they have inside their venue. If we just scroll down. So condition 17, this needs to be amended. Obviously, as Jeremy explained, we were going back and forth within half an hour of this hearing, just trying to get it sorted for you all. So we're asking for the ID scanner to be operational from 7 p.m. every day. Mr. Khan asked for the section about the senior management and the DPS to have the discretion to allow some people in without being scanned. We've thought about this and we can't accept that. We would ask for all patrons after 7 p.m. to be scanned. This is in relation to a tool for evidence gathering, but also as a deterrent. And I can, if you want to seek clarification, I can talk to you about that further, but I'll just carry on for now. In relation to the SIA and the queue, we're asking a barrier to be used for an external queue, and for it to be well managed. That's just going to be a replacement of condition 18. Condition 20 is a replacement. It just tidies up that condition a bit, just asking for an instant log, and it lists what we'd like to see on the instant log. Condition 22 is a replacement in relation to staff training, wave training, ask for Angela, etc. every 12 months. Replacement from condition 23, and that's in relation to pub watch and snow radio or similar. Condition, so these, we're now coming on to the new, so all what we've just spoken about were amendments to their existing license, and these are new conditions that we'd like to see. So a toilet attendant, if you look at my statement, there was issues with the knowledge of Ask for Angela, and obviously with the sexual assaults happening inside the venue, we'd like to see a toilet attendant from 7 p.m. On Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays, and for them to be adequately trained. A new condition in regards to body cams on SIA. We've negotiated and we've accepted a 1 or a 20% of all SIA on duty, whichever is higher will be equipped with a body cam, and that will be saved for 31 days, like their CCTV condition. A new condition in relation to welfare officers, that's looking at vulnerable females or vulnerable people in and around the venue, and they've agreed from 9 p.m. until close each Thursday, Friday and Saturday. They'll employ a welfare officer, 1 per the first 200 at the venue, and then an additional 1 each 200. And at least 50% must be female. Another new condition in regards to risk assessment. Now, you'll obviously hear from the venue themselves, but they're talking about not having any promoted events. But we're saying, just to safeguard, we're saying if they do, then we'd like an adequate risk assessment. There was issues before in regards to promoted events in my statement. There's no queue permitted outside the venue once the venue is at capacity. That's in relation to queue management, holding of queues, which we believe attracts ASB and crime and undermines the licence objectives. Another condition about monitoring CCTV. So we've asked from 9 p.m. until close every Thursday, Friday and Saturday. A designated member of staff will be monitoring the CCTV in the premises. That will act as proactively, hopefully helping with the crime thefts and incidents inside and out of the venue. So these conditions, I'm sure you'll hear from Mr. Khan, but were proposed by the premises, so I've just added on for your ease. I'll run through these briefly because I'm sure he can go further, but He's talked about no arch within the premises to be used as dedicated dance area, no laser light, no promoted event, no entry or re-entry. He's saying from 0 to 100 hours, but obviously this has not been agreed by us. Litter removal. The DPS will be the sole DPS of that venue, no other venues. The DPS at the moment is roughly 22 DPS for 22 other venues, and we believe that's too much. The external queue will not extend be on the. We came up with a point of the venue. I'm sure he can describe, but it's a shorter external queue, and that will then trigger an internal queue. But I'll let him explain that one. From 8 PM on a Friday and Saturday, there'll be 2 members of security outside, and their role will be to monitor the queue and the people outside. They will have a telephone line for residents. They will host a forum for residents. There will be the following policies, which I've added on below, but included the search policy, which for some reason that disappeared. So I'll put that back on. So if we just scroll down. So the internal queuing system, which I spoke about, that will have SIA and a queue management policy. The fire risk assessment, which I don't believe has been done yet. There's just in relation to the dispersal policy, there'll be 1 SIA for every 30 customers dispersing. I'll let him talk to you about that stuff, because that's a whole brand new concept that Mr. Khan's come up with. So, and then if we just scroll down, so this is the search policy, which seems to have disappeared. So I've added it back on. It's just for customers to be searched. We had some negotiation. Mr. Khan originally said he wanted some customers may be searched. Where I've asked for every customer to be searched, which he agreed on. We just need to talk about the times. I want from 7 PM. And then if we scroll down a bit further, that's the queue management policy. This is his Mr. Khan's policy. I'll let him talk about that. And then if we scroll down, the dispersal policy from the premises that they've come up with. Yeah, music policy and dress code policy. So they're all policies that the venue have come up with. So, Chair, it's completely up to you. I don't know if you want to hear from Mr. Khan in relation to them.
Well, colleagues, Councillor Snell, you've raised a hand. Councillor Snell, you're on mute. You're still on mute if you want to ask a question.
The reason I was on mute is because we've got the screen taken over. I couldn't see anything on the screen, but if we can return to the normal screen, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Right. To be honest, I put my hand up so long ago, I think I've forgotten what it was about.
Okay, that's fine. We've had the conditions presented. I've also noticed that the other persons here have been making comments in the chat. I have to say that we don't use the chat for comments about the hearing, so those comments are invalid. We're not going to pay attention to them because the chat is reserved solely for issues of IT, and anything you wish to say, you put your hand up and address the whole committee through the chair, please. I think we've now got to the point where I will just take general points. We have clear proposals from the police and the venue regarding changes. And it's obviously a process that is still kind of in negotiation. So that's for leaves us in a position it's quite useful to have people's comments on where we think we're up to. So comments or points, please. Mr. Sheikh, you have a hand up.
Hi. I said something in the chat, so if this is not going to be used, I would like to make this point known. Just following on from the few comments from the police officer. So for the amount of sexual assaults, stabbings, and possible deaths, because there's been quite a few stabbings in Shoreditch, which I'm sure you're aware of, I just don't see the humane justification to allow such a license to be presented by the local government and council for the personal gains of a company or a private individual. I believe that right now is the time to make drastic changes. This area is a very arty area. It's renowned. It's like the similar areas in Miami. A place like this could make a fantastic gallery, for example. Where
Okay, Mr. Sheikh, I just need to say that we're dealing here with a review of one particular premises, and we have to operate within the law on the review process. And while I completely understand that there's a broader context here, that residents wish to have a whole load of stuff they would like to say to many authorities about Shoreditch, this isn't the place to do it right now. We are dealing with particular changes, which we have to make a judgment about how to deal with this particular premises and the contribution it has made to your problems, if you like. And it may not be a major thing, but we have to do it within the law and what is fair for the premises. And we're in the process of hearing sort of proposals for sort of compromise, for improvement, that don't involve a total revocation of this license, and that's the limit of what we're dealing with here. So may
I ask what it may take for such revocation of this license
that's the point. If you let us hear the evidence, then we have a range of choices open to us as a committee, which go from revoking the license to taking no action. And you've heard from the police and from the premises that there are some various suggestions for significant changes being made. And we're in the process now as a committee of hearing what those changes actually involve. So I'm keen to hear from people who have comments that they want to make about the proposed changes, for or against. And then we'll pretty much wrap up. That seems to me where we're getting to. Okay, Mr. Mobley, you have a hand up.
Yeah. Hi. Just two points. One is that it seems to me clear that, and I put that in my document, that cargo seems the main attractor for this concentration of trouble in the area, and I don't see how there can be any clear resolution of that without actually revoking the license.
Okay.
On the other hand, certainly if the license won't be revoked, pulling back the hours will give everyone relief, huge amount of relief, because hopefully that means the trouble would disappear, not at 6 a.m. but at 3 a.m. But the only other point I want to make is just this strange fact that cargo is owned by the Shoreditch Bar Group, who own half of the venues in Shoreditch. And I find that, I don't know how the licensing committee is able to deal with that strange corporate problem, because it seems to me that problem promotions could just move to another venue quite easily. That's
Thank you
what I wanted to make.
for that. Right, who else do I have hands from? I have hand from Susanna.
Yes, I welcome the 3-month suspension, but I agree with Jonathan that we should put some conditions to maybe eventually, if nothing improves, when after the 3 months, that there must be a revoke of the license, and also to consider the summer months as well, and the COVID situation. Hopefully the 3 months is not during COVID restrictions, because then it has to be extended. And like I say, if nothing improves, then if the conditions are not followed through, there should be a revoke of the license. And this whole cumulative effect that Jonathan mentioned, because the owner owns the whole chain. So it's a type of promotion and the target audience that you're attracting that is giving rise to this mayhem for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Channing Riviere, you wish to say something?
Hi, Chair. I know there's still no agreement on hours between the police and the licensee. So I would just want to ask through the chair to the licensee, is there any hours that they would actually consider as some kind of compromise to propose to the committee? Or are they seeking to maintain the hours that the premises license has at the moment?
Can we hear
Yeah. Hi there. I'm Shmail Khan, the licensee of the premises. Chair, am I able to offer a brief background in response to?
I'm so sorry. I don't think I've asked for you to make representation, and we've gone on to discussion without that. I do apologise. Somebody should have drawn my attention to this. I'm sorry. So we need to go over to you to have your representation, please. And I believe that I have such a long list of people here. I don't know who's speaking.
Sarah and myself.
Right, and that's
Madam Chair,
I'm so sorry.
I'm here, and that's why my hand's up.
I'm so sorry. It's been a long day. Apologies to everybody for that. It's my fault completely. Yes, so you will make your representation now on behalf of the premises.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and that's precisely why my hand was up, and we do obviously recognise it's been a long day for everyone. I'll do my best to keep myself within the 5 minutes, reminding myself of how long a day it's been already. You do have a number of persons here on behalf of the premises. Mr. Khan, known as Rocky, heard from the police already, who's a director of the company, the new proposed designated premises supervisor, the outgoing designated premises supervisor, 3 former inspectors or sergeants employed by the Metropolitan Police in former lives and now employed by the company for periods of time to assist it in meeting the licensing objectives, the chairman of the company and 1 or 2 other persons as well. So far as the venues is concerned, and we know you'll have read all the material submitted, so I won't be repeating it. It's a venue that's been owned in its current ownership for about 13 years. It's an inherited business model. It has specialised in the promotion and support of upcoming artists, and that's been mirrored by the promotion and development of staff. So far as the review application is concerned, the committee, as indeed the cargo ownership and management, will have read and heard with extreme disquiet the residential accounts of life on the Boundary Estate, certain of the police accounts of their experience policing the Shoreditch Triangle, as well, of course, of the records relating to the incidents particularly associated with cargo itself, inside and in connection in particular with its queue and the dispersal of the venue. There is also material, and I know you and your colleagues will have recognised this, both within the police material and within the premises material, which does provide hard evidence of the premises in fact working with and responding to police concerns. And if necessary, we can go to that hard evidence, perhaps though that multiple employment of recently retired expert former police officers is an indication of the premises approach and the seriousness with which it takes its responsibilities. Notwithstanding that response, that past response, and the measures that have been taken in the past, the issues associated with cargo have not been resolved either to the police or to its owner's satisfaction. Hence this review, which is the only review that's ever been brought in respect of this premises licence. As with any review, it is incumbent on a committee, on the licensees, on all participants, in fact, try and identify the issues, the underlying issues, which are directly connected with the premises and which have given rise to the review. It seems to us that the issues are threefold. Incidents inside the premises, the thefts and assaults that you've heard through the police evidence. Issues associated with attendance at or departure from the venue. And then thirdly, and more widely still, the extent to which the very presence of the venue may have contributed to cumulative issues experienced in Shoreditch, in particular in the direct experience of the venue. Those have been associated with a lifting of lockdown, Freedom Day, and appalling behaviours which have negatively impacted on cargo and clearly negatively impacted horrendously on residents. You don't need me to tell you what the impact of COVID has been on the licence trade generally. It has been significantly decimated. You don't need me, I'm sure, Madam Chair, to enlarge on the extraordinary challenging issues that have been presented upon the reopening and the lifting of those restrictions. You certainly don't need me to remind you of the Secretary of State's guidance at paragraph 14.45 to the effect that cumulative impact issues are not the proper basis for review applications. Notwithstanding that guidance, this is a licensee that is looking to play its role in the resolution of those wider issues experienced. Those are for unselfish as well as selfish reasons to allow it to properly and lawfully and successfully trade. So far as the analysis of cargo's past operation is concerned, the causative analysis, it seems to us that this is fourfold. The profile, reputation, entertainment offering inherited and ingrained within the branding of cargo, first point. Secondly, the design and layout of the premises, which is overwhelmingly likely to have facilitated issues within the premises. Seems to us that thirdly, both the offering, the historic offering, and the design have been liable to contribute to pinch points on arrival and departure. A nightclub act-associated model is liable, of course, to present the likelihood of dense attendance and dense departure. And finally, that the senior day-to-day management in the form of the designated premises supervisor has indeed been spread too thin. There are, I suppose, two general routes to resolution. Firstly, to pick at the edges of the licence by way of conditions, recognising that this is a premises that hasn't been subject to review previously. It would be our assessment, is our assessment, and we share it with the TRA, in fact, that the reduction in hours doesn't change the character of the venue. Secondly, and this is our analysis, that something much more fundamental is required to change the character and change the repute of this venue, and so far as a single venue can assist an area more generally, to break and root out established patterns of attendance and behaviour in this part of the borough. To that end, a set of proposals were made to the police. Can I say this, because it is important to my client, that the suspension, which has been effected already voluntarily, was always a proposal of the venue. It appears to have been commended by the police. It is commended by a number of those residents whose views you will of course be taking into account. But this is a venue that recognised and put into action that suspension. It's already closed. It's feeling that financial impact. Of course, this would be typically the busiest time of the year for the licensed trade, when it does generate a very significant percentage of its business. But it is closed pending its own intentions in respect to the venue, pending your decision. There is a new proposed designated premises supervisor. You have his identity and his CV in your papers. What's proposed is to make best use of that period of suspension. Your powers extend to 3 months. It's already closed and has been for about 10 days. What will take place is approximately £1 million investment directed at a complete redesign of the venue to give each arch of the premises, each of the 3 arches, a different character. Mr. Riviere has accurately summarised those already for you. As part of that design, to design out entirely the dance floor area, as part of that redesign, to design out the dark spaces within that historic and nightclub type venue, to design in an internal holding area capable of managing an internal queue of 60 persons, and that allows the removal of the queuing issue from outside the street into the internal part of the street, and provides a safe place for persons to wait as they gradually leave the premises. The change in entertainment, as I've already indicated, will remove pinch points on arrival and departure. It's very difficult, and I'm already at 8.5 minutes, Madam Chair, and I don't want to stretch your patience. We have had a very great amount of information to deal with, and I've done my very best to summarise our response in what I hope is a helpful way to you. I anticipate you'll have questions about hours. I anticipate you'll have questions about the terms of a suspension, and you'll have many, many more questions. Mr. Khan, of course, is extremely well placed to answer the particular and operational type questions. I'm at 9 minutes, Madam Chair. I will stop speaking now because there will be significant questions.
Thank you for that. That's very helpful. I do have some questions, some hands up already. Councillor Snell.
Thank you. I see also that the chair of Boundary TRA is also going to hang up. So this question really is directed to the operator as well as to. I'm getting feedback here. Sorry. So this question is directed to the operator, but also I'd welcome some feedback from the chair of the Boundary TRA. Essentially, I want to repeat the question Channing asked earlier, which is, what is so unacceptable about going back to core hours? Why is in the redesign of the premises, it sounds as if just operating to core hours would be appropriate? Why are you saying you're definitely not interested in reverting back to core hours? And then I was also interested in the comment that came from the chair of Boundary TRA, who seemed to be suggesting that actually the danger with doing that was people will be out on the streets earlier anyway. I mean, it sounds like there's a general policing issue in the area, which, I mean, is it going to help if we do turn this back to operating, if we allow it to reopen, but say it can only open to midnight, basically? Is that going to make the problem better or worse?
Okay, I think that's a question first to the operator. I don't know whether Sarah, you want to answer that, or whether.
Yes, please. If I could please answer that. In terms of the hours, I just wanted to clarify a couple of quick points which will lead in to the hours question, which is we've actually closed cargo now forever. It'll never re-emerge. I also want to emphasize a couple of the points in relation to the conditions which we volunteered ourselves. The two questions of central importance is the removal of the designated dance arches, and secondly, the removal of promoted events. Now, those two conditions were the backbone of cargo and the venue which has been there for nearly 20 years. It was effectively a stadium where third parties would put on events. Everyone would turn up during a very short window period. When the performance was finished, everyone would go. And that was one of the big causes of the issues which the police drawn to our attention. All of that has now gone and will not come back because we volunteered that condition. The 3-month suspension is to break any affiliation with the old cargo and any behavioural patterns in relation to the public who know of the practice being there. In relation to going back to core hours, we've thought about this long and hard. We've managed to secure a third party pretty substantial investment of £1 million. What that will result in is an enormous overhaul of the premises. Every arch will be rebuilt, redesigned, brand new furniture, decor, absolute stonking venue we're looking to build here. On top of that, the internal queuing system will remove virtually all of the trouble off the street. There won't be anything for passing people to look at, get involved with. That investment, we're looking at approximately a 10-year horizon in order for that to be repaid and for us to not be in breach of our covenants in relation to that. The premises is I'm sure you all know it, but to be clear, it's a viaduct under the train tracks. There's very little natural light there. It doesn't really lend itself to be repositioned to anything else. Now, that's not to say we're not going to try our very, very best to entice people throughout the course of the day, brunch, lunch. We certainly will do that, and we want people in there during the day in order for them to build an affiliation. But the issue is, in Shoreditch, it is the late night sector which makes businesses stand up. And if we're not able to benefit from that, the whole thing is highly likely just to fall over. In order to protect against any issues arising from the late night operation, we've built that internal queuing system, which will also be used as a queuing system for dispersing people. And there's a range of other ideas without going through all of the...
Okay, I'm going to stop you there because you've answered the question on the hours, and we can come back to other points if people want to make them. I think we've heard a great deal and we've received the information from you about the proposed changes. Councillor Snell also asked the question of the hours to Susanna de Boundary, TRA Chair, and she also wanted to say something here. So
yes, so I would welcome as a start the change of hours recommended by Jeremy and Channing. I think that definitely gives residents more sleeping hours. So please do not misread my point. I think my point is that cannot be the only condition. And as to the licensed premises proposal to have a new concept, you have to have a new application therefore, so that we could see what kind of concept. Because changing the decor, but still retaining a high impact, high drinking, heavy drinking, high energy kind of 3 arches instead of 1 big arch doesn't really make much difference. Having queuing internal instead of external doesn't make any difference because people could still spill out after the partying, you know. So I'm sorry, this spending of 1 million, we have to see what kind of a concept you're proposing, and I suggest that the council request that you send in a new proposal so that we could see is it still the same kind of partying and heavy drinking outlets that you're saying. So in short, I agree with the shortening of hours as a first step and then the suspension for 3 months, but I'm saying that there should be conditions. If all the conditions are not met as requested by the police and Jeremy and Channing, then there should be a revoke of the license. And if you're changing concept, please submit your new application. Thank you.
I think we've received some of the details of the new it's not a new application as such. I'm not quite sure whether those have been widely distributed or not. I don't know. Has the material that was sent to the committee been sent to everybody or not? Probably not.
I think it's published, Madam Chair. It was certainly in the connection, it was sent out with the invitation to the meeting, and that includes the proposal for Rivington Arches and the detail that you and your colleagues have.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Mr. Khan, sorry, you're not Susan Noonan, Sarah Noonan.
Yeah, apologies for that. It's a colleague's computer. Apologies.
Yeah. Yeah, so you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in response that I completely appreciate that. There's no value in giving a premises a lick of paint and changing the name, and you'd end up in exactly the same place. I totally appreciate that, and I empathise with that concern deeply. I really do. That's not what our plan is, and our plan is a complete overhaul. And in fact, I just want to go back to the 2 conditions again, which I mentioned. We've completely withdrawn our ability to function even remotely closely to what the old premises was, with the heavy nightclub dancing and the promoted event. We'll never be able to revert back to that business plan. And that's something which we volunteered. In turn, with the branding and the creation of the new concept, we're not going for a high volume, high turnover business model. We're actually looking to pick the business model up substantially, step it up a good few gears, and offer something completely different to what that premises was, and then actually use that as a springboard to go further afield in the Shoreditch area.
So can I ask you, as somebody has raised the fact that there are a lot of other premises in the area controlled by you or your company, are there other premises in Shoreditch that represent the kind of premises that you want to create in Cargo?
There are. We've got a members club, and it is a members club, but it's a totally different. It's the sort of venue which we're going to be looked to creating here, not as a members club.
You're not talking about a members club, so
we're certainly not.
Then that's not the same. Have you? I don't know how many premises you control, but is there another premises that reflects?
I think we could look at the ground floor of the Shoreditch premises, which is on the high street. But again, that doesn't quite reflect it because we're looking to step it up substantially more than that. Perhaps a blend of the Shoreditch with the non-membership element of it, combined with the decor and the design and the quality of product offering at the King's Head. And I think that's where the premises will be positioned. If I can add to that, something that we've committed to and where we're going to lead massively from the front on this is our involvement in the Hackney Nights initiative, alongside trying to create an ongoing forum for residents, which the new premises Rivington Archers intends on hosting regularly. And we would look towards all of the stakeholders in making decisions with what we're doing with this premises and potentially others as time goes on. So I see it very much as an ongoing dialogue with the police, residents and the council to ensure we're growing as a community here. And I see this as my opportunity to make a really big statement in that direction. And we will do that given the opportunity.
Okay. In order of hands, I've got for Channing Riviere.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like some further clarification around the proposal, because I know they've said that they want to have a tap room, a cocktail bar and an eatery. Regarding the eatery, are there any specific proposed conditions around that? Would they be seeking to submit a variation to add hours for late night refreshment? I know in Mr. Khan's statement, he says that they're seeking to take the premises away from being a vertical drinking premises. But even with what's proposed, there's still the potential for, at least in the other two arches, which are not the eatery, for it to be a vertical drinking premises. So my concern is here is, are we just, even though we may be stopping having cargo there, we still have another late night drinking venue where historically the police have demonstrated there's been some issues here. So are we sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul, if that makes sense, with regards to the license? How much of a change is it going to be? Does Mr. Khan anticipate to see with regards to how the impact the premises has on the nighttime economy, if essentially the late night alcohol hours are still there?
I think I'm going to take that as a question that the committee have to consider rather than directly a question to Mr. Khan. Thank you, Channing. Jonathan Mobley, did you have a question or point you wanted to make?
Yeah, just one point was you weren't sure how many venues in Shoreditch are associated with the Shoreditch Bar Group. It's about 20. Their influence on Shoreditch nightlife is huge and monopoly. And I had a question actually. Had cargo staff, were they in the habit of attending the regular Shoreditch pub watch, which I assume still exists? It's something I used to be involved in back at the time.
I will actually just ask Mr. Khan to answer that question very specifically.
Yeah, they were, and I think somebody quite senior in our group filled in for the chair when the chair was absent for a period of time.
Was that specifically the cargo, or was that from Shoreditch Bar Group?
It was from cargo. The old cargo.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next question I have is from Naveed Sheikh.
Yep. It's more of a point that I'd just like to make really. The target audience, has the target audience been pushed? Because I think everyone understands here with the hip hop culture and the grime culture, if no one's aware of this, the music itself is quite violent, and they talk about and they so they make it cool, to take drugs and knocks and get absolutely wasted, etc. So is this venue, will it be hosting certain nights where maybe hip hop culture is encouraged?
What we have is a suggestion that they move away completely from that music. I mean, that's within the applicant's paperwork, I think.
Okay.
Mr. Khan, if you want to shake your head if I'm wrong about that.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to emphasise that the new model, we will not lose control of the music at any stage. There are no promoted events. Staff cannot plug in their own systems. No one can decide on the music other than head office, and it will stick to that religiously. The music genres we've listed are the only ones which coincide with our brand Bible for the Rillington Free Arches, and we won't be playing any music which glamorizes anything of that ilk at all.
Okay, thank you. Robert Gardner, you had your hand up.
Yes, yes, Chair. I just have a couple of, similar to Channing's point, really. I think that we have offer of a tap room, a restaurant, a cocktail bar. In fact, we didn't see the conditions of how this might operate until actually today. So I really don't think it's a very complex change that's being suggested here, and I'm not sure that we're in a fit state to just sort of knock it through, if you like. I would say there's some confusion over the conditions because if you have a club scan and queuing and all the rest of it, it does seem to imply that they may well be moving to a just moving the premises onto some sort of club kind of aspect where there will be dancing and all the rest of it. And I can just say that rich people make the same noise as anyone else. So I think there is something here to be debated. I certainly think that maybe the legal advisors would help you on this, but it's a very complex change to take on a review.
It is. Thank you for that, because that's drawn to everybody's attention something that certainly crossed my mind, but both about the complexity and also about the conditions, which in effect are conditioning cargo. And I share your concerns about that, because that implies an acceptance of things that perhaps in the presentation for change is not accepted. So there does seem a genuine slight confusion there. Hands up from Jeremy Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. Very shortly, and just taking that last point on conditions, obviously we as the police, as responsible authority, can only condition what we can see. It's very difficult for us to condition a new concept where we don't have the detail. If I could just ask Mr. Khan a couple of questions. Mr. Khan, it's implicit from what Mr. Lefebvre has said that you accept that things have not been right with the premises for quite some time.
Yeah. And to add to that, the last month and a half, sort of with working with Sean and understanding the police concerns, have developed things massively for me in understanding what sort of what the issues are, and I completely share the concerns of the police and the local residents entirely.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Yes, and you and the committee will see, to be fair to the police, the number of times that they've over the past years have endeavoured to make these points to you. I think you'd accept, I'm sure, that you've had multiple discussions over the whole period of time to address the problems that have been arising.
My relationship and our group relationship with the police has always been an absolute priority from mine. Right from the moment 13 years ago we entered cargo, I fell into a working relationship with the police. The last about 3 years ago, I became one step removed from this licensed premises for a variety of things which were happening in my personal life. Now, I wouldn't say that I neglected the premises. I was involved, but I wasn't directly involved holding the reins of this particular premises. In line with that, COVID came through. Now, it has been one of the most stressful things I've ever encountered in my life. I'd wake up in the morning thinking everything was gone, and in the night, I'd think that we were reaching some agreement with a huge amount of people, landlords, utility providers. It was complete mayhem during that period. Now, I'm not using that as an excuse for what's been going on in Shoreditch, because it's just not an excuse. The responsibility is there. But the last couple of years have been absolute mayhem.
Thank you.
The one thing I will say is the moment that review came through, as soon as I took legal advice, I made the decision to close that venue, and within 2 days, I made a proposal of completely closing Cargo forever, and that was
Right.
something that yeah.
Thank you. Just on that point, we've heard what your proposal is, the concept. Wouldn't it be appropriate, therefore, to present the new concept to the committee, and obviously you'll have to make a variation application to bring all those things through, to operate the premises then for 6 months, say, on core hours, to demonstrate that everything that you've been telling the committee today is right, and we can actually see it in the detail in every aspect of the operation. And then if everything is as you say, wouldn't you then be in a very good position to say to the committee, look, I've held my side, I've fulfilled my side of the bargain, I present exactly what I've said, it is what I described. Now, please, may I have a small extension of the hours, because we can see from what I'm offering that it is not going to add in any way to the problems in the area. Would that not be a fair and kind of balanced approach to take to it?
The one thing I would like to share is, in making this proposal work, we are taking out a very substantial amount of debt. Now, the moment that is taken and the new proposal is implemented, we have got a huge amount on the line. We need 10 years of no incidents and the venue operating without any issues. We could be reviewed within a month of the new operation, and the whole investment could go to pot. We'd be in significant breaches of our financial covenants, and the implications for that would be immense, way beyond this premises. And there's just no way we can afford that. And we're making that investment in order. I'm super confident with all of the precautions we've put in, and I intend to maintain dialogue with Sean and the rest of the police as often as I can to ensure every little detail, concern they may have, our operation is evolving on a day-to-day basis in line with their requirements.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. I would like just to clarify on the 3 months and the police position regarding what you would be happy with in terms of the state things have to be at the end of that 3 months, or whether that 3 months is flexible. What is the police position on this exactly in terms of setting an expectation? I mean, we've talked about a sort of hybrid response as being a possibility, and so is the 3 months suspension, is that a hard and fast? Are the police expecting that they would be able to clarify points? I mean, I know the police are asking for core hours as well, but is there I wasn't sure when you spoke earlier whether there was a sort of flexibility written into what you wanted in terms of the timing of that closure.
Thank you, Madam. Obviously, the maximum suspension that we can seek is 3 months.
Right.
And that's a discussion we've had with the licensee, and Mr. Khan, as I understand it, has agreed in principle with that proposal. It's a matter for them. I have no knowledge as to how advanced how their designs are and the funding and so forth. It would seem to me, to be frank, a somewhat tight schedule to get everything done within that time. I can't see myself, my experience, that could be done. But be that as it may, the premises have already been closed because it's been recognised, I think, that the difficulties that have arisen. And so, as I said earlier, we can only tailor the conditions to what we can see at the moment. So if you were, for example, to agree to the removal of the DPS, and that's, I think, common ground, the the premises to remain closed, which again is common ground, so that the proposals can advance, and to impose the conditions, the agreed conditions, and the hours that the police seek. If at the end of that period, for whatever reason, the premises, Mr. Khan decided, well, we've had an issue with the funding, or we can't now justify the new scheme, we're going to reopen, then at least the police would have the comfort that the premises were subject to much tighter set of conditions, which have been carefully reviewed by me and by officers, and would be subject to tighter hours, ideally the core hours. Then I think it's the police view that that would be much less likely to lead to the problems that we've seen. And indeed, if the premises, if the management has taken on board all we said, as Mr. Khan has indicated, then one would hope that there's no reason why these should be problematic premises at all. We can't impose, and you can't condition, you can't require Mr. Khan to invest the £1 million in the new scheme. It is simply a hope on our part, and perhaps the community's part, that he does that. But if that doesn't happen, then at least we would see properly conditioned premises, tightly conditioned premises, operating within hours where we would be fairly confident that, well, we wouldn't see anything like the problems, particularly, as you heard from PC Giles, where all of the violence and the crime was associated with post midnight, really. And then the later the evening got on, the more marked that deterioration was.
That's very clear. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jonathan, maybe you had wanted to make a point or ask a question.
Yeah, a couple of points. One is there's been some suggestion by the people who've spoken for cargo that the problems are problems that have arisen since COVID. They are not. I mean, these problems were severe for about 3 years before COVID. Throwaway comment. I mean, if this is the outcome of a good relationship with the police, what would a bad one look like? I'm sorry, but that doesn't bode too much help. I think it was hinted at from a few people. I would question why, if this is a completely new business proposal, should it not be subject to a completely new license application? I think if the business is gone, great, we'll shut it down. It's a new business. It should be a new license and assessed in that way. The core hours trial suggestion of 6 months, I think, sounds very sensible. I see no reason at all why that couldn't be done. The only defence I've heard of not doing that is something to do with linking the fact that you need to recoup investment. Recouping investment is not an adequate reason for disturbing people's lives at 3 or 6 in the morning. I would also ask whether reduction in capacity could be a consideration. I don't know if it has been mentioned or not. I think those are probably all the points I had to make.
Thank you. Is there any proposed reduction in capacity by anybody? Mr. Khan.
Thank you. The internal queuing system, which has been designed, actually sits within the premises, and that can hold 60 people at a maximum. So historically, what I refer to as cargo, we had a capacity of 750, and then let's say an additional 200 or 100 outside the premises. The total capacity of this premises, the new premises, with the queue included, will be whatever the fire risk assessment comes out at. Now, what I'll say in addition to that is, given the fact that the vast open arches of cargo will be removed entirely and booth seating and seating zones will be inserted, I suspect the capacity will be reduced beyond what it was historically.
Okay.
And that fire risk assessment will be conducted the moment the build is completed, and will be within that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Comments or something from Susanna? And then I think
Yeah, it's also about capacity. I just also want to emphasize the point that, I mean, I'm a lay person, but to me, capacity is how many people you can accommodate on the inside. So, and also with your 3 different concepts, so you have to make sure as a totality, the capacity is not greater than your current cargo capacity. Otherwise, it's actually making a bigger partying venue. So that's my concern on capacity as well, besides the restrictions on opening hours.
Okay, I think it seems very likely that the capacity, as Mr. Khan has said, would be lower under a fire risk, but we would have to wait and see. Okay, I think we've come to the point where we've heard from everybody. Councillor Bell, you're up. Yeah.
To the police and then to Mr. Riviera. Did I hear within your evidence that on previous occasions you'd had promises from Mr. Khan about how premises would be run? And did you include in your evidence a feeling that these were not necessarily kept to? PC Giles?
Yes, Councillor. In my review statement, I think there's 2 off the top of my head. I can go over and have a look, but there was 2 instances where we brought issues up to Mr. Khan. He offered a resolution, but then it wasn't sorted out. One was in relation to the type of music. Himself and the DPS was brought to their attention, and they offered up that promoted events and types of music may incite violence. And they were going to admit that type of music. That didn't happen. A few days later, they had an event with that type of music, and that resulted in disorder and a GBH. Secondly, in relation to COVID regulations, there was the council issued a warning to them in relation to breaches. As a response, they offered a more food-led operation. This didn't happen. So that's 2 occasions.
Yeah, thank you.
And Mr. Riviera, Mr. Gardner?
Chair, I believe it was Mr. Gardner's comments that he raised about, I believe it was page 4 of the police officer's statement, which makes reference to what PC Giles has just outlined. And how can we have the confidence that they will carry out the new activities if they've proposed to the police before that they will carry out certain activities but then fail to carry them out?
Rob Gardner, do you want to comment?
No, Channing is absolutely precise. I did say, in fact, if he looks to page 4 of the statement, it does outline some agreements, but then which were then not met.
Okay, thank you both.
I think that's obviously important in thinking whether or not we go for a revocation or some of the lesser options.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mr. Khan, you're next with a hand.
Yeah, look, this is absolutely no excuse, and it's our duty to be absolutely clear with the communication, and for that I apologise for the historic for the historic confusions. We should have been a lot more clear. I would just point out that those issues in relation to the food were during the height of COVID, with the in and out of the Scotch egg debate. In relation to the promoters as well, we stopped taking on any new promoters to the operation. We drew a line in the sand and were only working with long-standing promoters. Moving forward, promoters will not be any part of our operation in the slightest. And last but not least, I appreciate your concerns about the deliverability of this proposal, and I am willing to commit contractually and in terms of the conditions to whatever is required and whatever is deemed fit to ensure that that follow through is executed on our part. In our minds and our capability, it's there. Designers have been in, 3D scans of the premises have been taken, the funding is now committed, and as Mr. Phillips points out, whatever the legal structure may be, I'm a layman in that respect, it goes above my head, but we are more than willing to commit to that as the committee and police see fair as they would like.
Okay, does it answer your questions, Councillor Bell?
Well, just to comment to the TRA especially, but others as well. My understanding is if we went for a revocation option, that would be the nuclear option. We cannot build a revocation into another option. So we cannot build suspension with a later threat of revocation. That would need a separate meeting to be held again. So I'm first asked Amanda, is that correct? My understanding?
Amanda.
Yes, sorry. Could you just repeat that last bit again, Councillor Bell?
My understanding is we cannot build into a decision today a suspension period followed by a threatened revocation. If the decision is
No,
not
we can't do that. No, we
all the
can't.
decisions would be subject to a later meeting.
Yes, that's correct.
Just for the TRA and all others to be clear about that, it's not an option we can ever go down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Sheikh, you had your hand up.
Yes, I would just like to bring to your attention a couple of points. Firstly, if the licensee has already, ignored the police, which is sort of, is the helm of our society, it's the people that we call when anything happens to us or in our personal lives. If already he's ignored the police twice, I think that shows a lack of, cooperativeness. And I think also another really important thing is the amount of funding. So if it's £1 million funding, an investment which he's receiving, and things aren't going too well in the next few months, and let's say we go into another lockdown, and then there's more pressure to pay the banks or the investors, and he's already got the license to continue working, would it not be quite easy to just change the genre? If this genre is not working, if this type of music is not working, and he knows from past experience of running Cargo 20 years, would he not, have a couple of nights to do, some other genre? And that could be another nuisance issue for us.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a very valid point. And if he's already ignored the police twice, and he's already got the license for, let's say, 5 years now, then no one can do anything, including the police.
I believe that the premises have proposed a condition that they don't operate using promoters. Am I correct in that? Yes. So that is a condition that does, to some extent, because we can't condition the type of music, but we can, and the premises have offered that as a condition regarding the type of operation of the premises, where bringing in promoters is traditionally perhaps the most risky form of venue running, and they're conditioning that they wouldn't do that. So just to clarify what we can and can't do on that. Mr. Khan, you wanted to say something else before we sum up?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, we have made mistakes, and
I think we're aware of that.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to say, 13 years we have been there, and we have done. I hold the police in incredibly high esteem, and I just think that I hope that it's not unnoticed, just in response to Mr. Sheikh, what we have done from here in relation to the COVID and another threat of another lockdown and the financial disaster that could spell. That is a very material threat at the moment for the premises, and that could well happen. What that would result in is not us sort of changing the business model, because we've conditioned it such. It would just probably spell the end of the premises. We're hopeful that doesn't happen, and we're hopeful that we're here for the next 10 years without any issues arising with the conditions that we put forward. Sorry.
Okay. Thanks. No, that's helpful. Thank you, Councillor Bell.
It's just to a point that you made earlier. When the police were going through their conditions today, I found it quite alarming that you were suggesting that a search policy should apply, but then you could make exceptions to it. Yes. There is no point in a search policy if it doesn't apply to everyone coming in. And the fact that you wanted this exception for DPS and senior management, which is a very big term in itself, shows me you're not taking this seriously enough yet.
I think I appreciate that, and I think in our minds, it's if it was cargo, that with the promoted events and the venue as it is, we would not look at that twice. That would be immediate from 6 p.m., 5 p.m., no questions asked. The challenge that we've got is with the new premises, taking the premises up several notches when we've got people from, for example, the Hoxton Hotel who are coming in for dinner at 8 or drinks early doors, and they don't have ID, the viability of the overall premises. Point taken, and I wouldn't dream of ever having that condition changed for the current modus operandi, but we are eliminating that in its entirety. But we wouldn't if it was cargo at all.
Okay, well, this is a very good example of the kind of pickle you get yourself into if you have a review, and how difficult it can be to unpick. And obviously the way around that would be to lose the license and reapply, but we are where we are. Okay, I'm now proposing that we have summing up briefly if people want to. So that would be, first of all, Jeremy Phillips for the police, please.
Thank you, Madam. I can be very short. You've read all the papers. It's all in there, basically. And you may think that you haven't seen a worst case of sustained disorder and failure to set things right and to address the licensing objectives. I think the three short points I'd make. Firstly, Madam, do you and your colleagues perhaps have a look at the very useful history in comparison with other premises, which I think from memory was started at page 36 in the bundle, which really puts cargo in the context of the other premises that you've licensed in the area. Secondly, I would invite you to just remind yourself of the contents of the letter from the commander for the area, Detective Chief Superintendent Barrett. I think that's on just 2 pages, page 163 and 164, Appendix B44, where he again puts these premises in the context for the police and explains precisely how they see the situation, how seriously they have taken it and thought about it before bringing this review. And then lastly, just a very short point, Mr. Khan said in response to my question about core hours, well, trouble is, we'd be taking on a lot of debt and we'd have to repay that. Sadly, they are where they are. That's not really a matter that the licensing authority can consider. It's not, it doesn't come within the Act or the authorities on it. And I think if the premises are to remain, or if the license is to remain in existence at all, then really it does cry out for a reversion to those hours, certainly for a period of time before perhaps being in a position to apply to extend.
Really sort of any tangible way we can really condition the license, in my view, without seeing how it operates or having a more clearer definition of what's going to take place at the premises. And that's my view, Chair. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Okay, I presume, Sarah, you want to sum up for the premises.
Yes, please. Thank you. Although I might reserve a minute for Mr. Khan, given that it's his business. I hope you find, you and your colleagues find, that this premises has presented itself with candour and frankness today. It hasn't sought to justify the unjustifiable. It has, on any view, taken a step in advance of today, which is beyond the powers of this licensing subcommittee. It has closed irrevocably a premises that the police identified as being a problem premises. And you'll know the frustration that can be felt by licensing authorities and police authorities when a committee reaches a decision in respect of a premises license, whether to revoke or condition, and then it's subject to appeal, and the whole decision gets effectively put off for months and months and months. And that is the reverse of the position you're presented with today, and that's because of the decision making made by the premises management. It's right that a set of proposed conditions have been proposed to us and agreed by us with the Metropolitan Police, more apt to condition a club premises. Those are conditions the police seek, and we don't resist them. What we have sought to do through our proposed conditions is make sure that the premises couldn't seek to reopen in a guise of cargo or something analogous to cargo. It's not just the promoted events condition, it's the removal of dedicated dance floors within the arches, which is proposed by way of condition, clearly an enforceable condition, and would in conjunction prevent the premises ever being able to re-emerge as a fledgling cargo in the future. In answer to a point that Mr. Riviere made, I think, the premises license does already benefit from late night refreshment to all the hours that it's permitted to trade currently. In answer to the question why we seek to retain the existing hours, the answer is, and it's not a very surprising answer, that's the commercial reality. It's an honest and frank answer. Any person who's ever appeared in front of this authority, or indeed any authority where there's a cumulative impact policy in force, knows only too well that it is virtually impossible to seek additional extended hours beyond core hours in the current climate, or perhaps at all. Those are just commercial realities. That's where the operator sits when he says, I seek to retain those hours. So I do commend the applicant to you for frankness, candour, vision, effective action before and effective proposed action in the future. I'll be silent and I invite Mr. Khan, if you wouldn't mind, Chair, to see if there's 30 seconds worth of observations he would add before closing.
Yeah, I'd just like to really emphasise at a group level our working in partnership commitment with the police, which has been there for 13 years, and it will be there as long as we're in this area. Simultaneously to that, that is why we've closed, as a show of our commitment to that. We're now opening the lines of communication with residents, and I hope that partnership sustains for time to come. I think the proposal that we've offered will never allow anything remotely close to cargo to ever arise again. And in relation to the core hours, that is as good as closure for the premises. The premises is rated, rented, all of the liabilities offer a late license premises. If we're reduced to the core hours, it really is as good as a closure. And I wish and hope that we're given the opportunity to take this and demonstrate what we're able to do and the implications for Shoreditch and all the stakeholders. I will make it my personal responsibility to push that forward for everyone's benefit, of all the views we've heard today, and also in all of the representations that I've read forensically night and day over the last month.
Thank you. I'm just going to invite Jonathan Mobley to sum up on behalf of the residents, if you would like to.
Yeah, just very briefly, we've just heard the use of the word community and lines of communication with residents. The Shoreditch Bar Group can never be part of the community that I speak on behalf of. There will always be conflicting interests here. and anything that suggests otherwise is a complete pretense. So the job is to accept that and reconcile it, and and do the job. It's a really hard job. I don't even see how these things can be properly resolved to the satisfaction of residents, really, without some very drastic action, which includes things like license revocation. I'd like to think that there are ways to mediate through this that aren't as drastic, but at the moment I'm not optimistic, I'm afraid, and I think I'm speaking for all the residents by saying that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you to everybody for attending this review hearing. I'm now going to ask everybody except the panel and those assisting us in making our decision to leave the meeting, and the decision will be made available through licensing tomorrow and publicly available in its full form within a week after that, hopefully. Okay, on that notice, thank you very much to everybody, and I'll call the meeting to an end.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening.
Thanks.